I am Todd Gatewood. I'm a photo archivist and film restoration specialist. I'm restoring the Patterson Gimlin film. But this isn't just about footage, it's about truth. And I'm going to say what others won't. And I'm going to show you what nobody else has or dared to show you. Let's start with the word most people misunderstand: occult. They hear it and immediately think candles, robes, devil worship fantasy, but that's not what it means. That word is cult. This word is occult. The word occult simply means hidden. That's it. Occult knowledge is truth that's been buried and hidden, not because it's false, but because it's inconvenient, because it's disruptive, because if they ever saw daylight, the world as we know it would have to change. This story is the story of Sasquatch. It's a story of occult knowledge. It's not myth, it's not lore, it's not cryptozoology, it's not history. It's suppression, and it's deliberate. Now let's get this straight from the start. Native American history is not lore. It's not some vague campfire story or blurry memory. It's direct oral history. It's preserved truth. The only reason mainstream society calls it lore is because they don't want to validate it. Calling indigenous testimony lore is a form of racism. It's a polite way of saying, we don't believe you. And for centuries, that denial has helped white institutions rewrite the truth. But indigenous peoples of this land, the Yurok, the Hoopa, Lumi, Choctaw, Cherokee Creek, and many more have spoken of forest people for generations. Not monsters, not animals, but people. They were different, yes, hair-covered, tall, strong, reclusive, but they were not beasts. They were a type of people. And that is the core truth I'm speaking to today. That's who I'm talking to, the people who already know, the people who believe, and the people who are tired of being told their eyes are lying to them. Now let's talk about something they really don't want you to know that's in your textbooks: scalp bounties. In the mid-1800s, particularly in California, Native American men, women, and children were hunted like animals. The government, local, state, and federal paid 50 cents a scalp, and in some counties that rose to $5 a head, sometimes even for cash. That wasn't rogue vigilantes, that's open market genocide, endorsed and subsidized. Historian Benjamin Madley documented how California's government spent millions of dollars in the 1850s funding these campaigns, slaughtering millions of Native people. And it wasn't isolated, it was systemic. So ask yourself, if that's how Native people were treated, hunted, erased, sterilized, assimilated, why would their knowledge be treated any better? If they wanted the people gone, they wanted the truth gone too. Science is not thinking, it's logging. Now let's address science. I'm not anti-science, but I'm going to tell you the truth. Most scientists aren't high IQ individuals, nor are they deep thinkers. When corporations and laboratories test them for hiring and employment, they're not looking for high IQ individuals. They're looking for that just right, low IQ technician that can cope with the lifetime of tedium and repetition. They spend decades measuring things, logging data, repeating procedures, hoping for variation. It's not about imagination, it's about repetition, and that's because the scientific machine is built to exclude anything that doesn't already fit inside its tiny little models. If Sasquatch doesn't show up in the fossil record or fit neatly between Australopithecus and Homo sapiens, then they throw it out. They treat it like noise, no data. And the public treats science like a kind of infallible AI. They say, well, science says it doesn't exist, so it must not exist. But here's the real kicker. Scientists act like they are AI models, trained only on monkeys. And if you're only trained on monkeys, all you're ever going to see in Sasquatch is a monkey. But if they are trained like an AI trained on monkeys and people, if that was true, if they allowed for both tracks in their models, then they'd have to acknowledge another possibility, that Sasquatch isn't a missing link. It's a parallel people. And once you admit that, nothing stays the same. The truth was rebranded. So here's what they did. They took a being described as a person by tribes across the continent and rebranded it as a mythical ape. They took sightings, tracks, first-hand encounters, and shoved them into the cryptid file. They told you this is folklore, even while documents, paintings, and testimonies were piling up. Now take a look at 19th century religious art. Look at the art in the Vatican, in the Sistine Chapel. There's paintings documented of creatures like Sasquatch, and in other paintings from the mid-1800s. They're seen boarding Noah's Ark with animals. not as a metaphor, visual acknowledgement. And yet that history was rewritten. Those records were dismissed. Those truths were occulted. Why? Because something happened. Something happened in this country around the late 1800s. Something big happened. And it's the economics of erasure. And let me explain why it became urgent, profitable. If the deny existence of Sasquatch was necessary, we entered into the industrial age. And suddenly forests weren't just scenery, they were resources. Trees became money, mountains became ore, waterways became transportation highways. And the law said you couldn't just bulldoze land that belonged to people. So they had to make sure Sasquatch wasn't a people. Sasquatch are real, and they're intelligent, sentient, social beings. Then the land is not empty. If the land isn't empty, then the land is not up for grabs. And that makes Sasquatch dangerous, not to people, but to profit. So what do? Well, you bury it, you ridicule it, you make the word Bigfoot a punchline. You teach kids to laugh at it, so they never think to look deeper. You call it a hoax, so no one asked, why are there thousands of consistent reports from across the country? You use science, not as discovery, but as deflection and deception. Let me talk about the Patterson Gimlin film, the one I've devoted myself to restoring. The Patterson Gimlin film is one of the most scrutinized, analyzed, and dismissed pieces of footage in American history. Yet every time it's reviewed by honest eyes, not biased ones, it tells the same story. That's not a suit, that's not a man, that's not a hoax. There's something walking away from us, calmly, with power, with structure, with musculature, and definition that defines the costume materials of the time of the day, much less today. And if someone is a person, then the entire scientific community and every institution built on denying that is caught with their pants down, with egg on their faces, red-handed, just like naked kings with no clothes. And they would have to eat crow. That's why they couldn't let it stand. And that's why they attacked it. And that's why I'm restoring it. Not for spectacle, but for history. Let me bring it all home, okay? You feel me? This isn't a story about monsters in the woods. This is a story about how truths get hidden. It's a story about native memory that was dismissed, eyewitnesses that were mocked, evidence that was buried because it challenged the machinery of power. It's about how the people in the forest are real, but inconvenient. It's about calling them apes or monkeys, and it's made easier to steal their land that way, to dismiss their rights, and yet another set of people from the continent are erased. And it's about how we do it today with laughter, with science, with silence. And people say, you don't have all the answers. And you know what? You're right. We don't. But just because we don't have every answer doesn't mean we don't know the truth. We know what we've seen. We know what we've heard. We know what they say and don't want us to say, that Sasquatch are people, different, hidden, suppressed, occulted, like us, but different. And we're done being quiet about it. I'm Todd Gatewood. I restore more than film. I restore the truth. This has been Occult Bigfoot.